Welcome back to the Bacon Bites, your one-stop shop for all things crispy, delicious, and tech-tastic. If you're new here, go ahead and sizzle that subscribe button and ring the dinner bell so you don't miss out hot and fresh content straight off the tech griddle. Today, we're going to talk about something sizzling on the coding stovetop. That's right, we're whipping up a tasty discussion about Microsoft's Copilot. Now, it isn't your regular run-of-the-mill microwave-ready code completion tool. Oh no. This is an AI-paired programmer ready to help slice and dice code like a master chef. In this video, we'll turn up the heat on how Copilot works, taste test its amazing features, slice into its controversies, and serve up tips on how you... The first thing I'm going to do is show you where you can learn all about Microsoft and Microsoft Copilot. So Microsoft Copilot, what I've done is gone ahead and created a library list here for Microsoft Learn. So that way you can get all this amazing information directly at your fingertips. So that way you can go ahead and peruse it on your own time. So this will be all in a link down in the description at the end of the video. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Now, first thing that we need to do is understand Microsoft Copilot. So Microsoft Copilot, that's an awesome, amazing brand that Microsoft came out with. But you know what? It could mean so many different things when it comes to business application and Dynamics and Fabric and Viva Sales. What does that mean? What about the Power Platform, Power Virtual Agents? All of these have Copilot in them. Each and every one of these icons on here and each one of these areas has a Copilot associated to it. So what we're going to do today is go through each of these fairly high level. If you have more questions, go ahead and drop it in the comments and we'll get connected soon. So as we're going through here, first things first, let's talk about M365. That's going to set the foundation and understanding of what Microsoft 365, what it means to have a Copilot along with you as you're cooking up these great recipes. So let's go ahead and dive into Microsoft 365. We're going to play some videos, so make sure you have that audio turned up as we go through here. So first video, this is from Microsoft's 365 website.
Microsoft 365 Copilot is powered by what we call the Copilot system, a sophisticated processing and orchestration engine. It harnesses the power of three foundational technologies: the Microsoft 365 apps, that's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and more. The Microsoft Graph, that's all your content and context, your emails, files, meetings, chats, and calendar. And a large language model, or LLM, a creative engine capable of parsing and producing human-readable text, all accessible through natural language. It starts with a prompt from you in an app. Copilot pre-processes the prompt through an approach called grounding. Put simply, grounding improves the quality of the prompt, so you get answers that are relevant and actionable. One of the most important parts of grounding is making a call to the Microsoft Graph to retrieve your business content and context. Copilot combines this user data from the graph with other inputs to improve the prompt. It then sends that modified prompt to the LLM. You may be familiar with what an LLM can do based on your experience with ChatGPT or Bing Chat. Copilot takes the response from the LLM and post-processes it. This post-processing includes additional grounding calls to the graph, responsible AI checks, security, compliance, and privacy reviews, and command generation. Finally, Copilot sends a response to the user and commands back to the apps. Copilot iteratively processes and orchestrates these sophisticated services to produce a result that feels like magic.
So let's go ahead and break this down real quick. So what we have is the user prompt, and the user prompt is being grounded in the Microsoft Graph data, right? That's doing the pre-processing. It's taking that information, understanding really in context in my organization, what does this information mean? If I say account XYZ, what does it mean when I say account XYZ? If I have information and access to some of the data, let's go ahead and go pull that information before we bring it to the large language model. After we've brought it to the large language model, what it's done is it's modified that prompt. It says, hey, Seth is looking for this information about Fabricam, about this account, about this client that we're looking at and interested in. Let's go ahead and pass some of that information in, and let's go ahead and modify that prompt. So that way, when it gets to the large language model, we can be very specific in what we're trying to achieve from that language model. Now that that model has been provided that information, again, we're not training the model at this point. The model has already been trained. It already is sitting there ready to be used. As it goes forward, it's going to then return back a response. And that response is going to be post-processed and it's going to be grounded back in that information again when it comes to our data and that data that's within the enterprise, right? Again, Microsoft Graph is secure. It's within your tenant as it goes through. And then after that, what the information will do is it'll be then displayed back to the user. So now what we're going to see and what we need to talk about is really, as we're going through these different applications up here, each one of those go through a similar task, right? They're going through a similar thing. When you have a prompt in one of these user interfaces, what it's going to do is it's going to ground that data. It's going to pre-process that prompt, take it to the large language model. That language model is then going to be grounded back in the information, make sure that the response is appropriate, right? And again, when we think of Microsoft, they're definitely taking a responsible AI approach, and it's listed the number, there's 6 different key responsibilities as they're going forward. And so Microsoft has those, the pre-prompts as they're going into the language model and as they come out are all being grounded in this information and then being brought back. So let's go ahead and see an example when it comes to Microsoft Teams. So many of us are working in Microsoft Teams or in a different chat bot. And so that opportunity to use Copilot to prompt it and say, hey, what's going on with this account? This account that I have a meeting coming up with that I maybe was out yesterday or didn't have a chance for a recap, or somebody I'm about to meet with. So what we're going to do next is watch a video that Microsoft has put out about the capabilities when it comes to Teams and using Copilot to do exactly what we saw, go to Graph, ground that information, and then bring it back. So let's go ahead and watch that video now.
The example you saw earlier in Microsoft Teams where a user asked, did anything happen yesterday with Fabricam? Copilot didn't just send that question or prompt directly to the large language model. Instead, Copilot knew that it needed more knowledge and context. So using clues from the user's question, like Fabricam, it inferred that it needed to search for content sources private to the organization. The Copilot orchestrator searched the Microsoft Graph for activities, ensuring it respected the user's permissions and access to information. In this case, the user Kat. It found the email thread from Mona that Kat received, activities in the project checklist and March planning presentation, which are files that Kat had access to, as well as the sharing action where the final contract was sent to Fabricam for review. Again, where Kat would have been part of the share activity. And Copilot cited each source of information so Kat could easily validate the response.
So just imagine that the ability to go and prompt a question saying, did anything happen yesterday with this account? I was out, I was on the golf course, I was helping with the kids, I was doing a dentist appointment, I was walking the dog. There's reasons that we miss things, right? We don't have an understanding of everything that's going on in the organization, especially if you manage people, and especially if you're on a sales team, if you're working with multiple people, you're running multiple deals. So help me get caught up on what's happening. And so that ability to prompt this question to get ready for a meeting, an appointment, our next interaction, being able to meet back with the team, we can go ahead and prompt it and saying, hey, help me get caught up on this, right? So it's going to pass that information. It's going to go look at Graph. And again, Graph is Microsoft's name for being able to see SharePoint, OneDrive, Exchange, all that kind of stuff. And again, these are all secure within the Microsoft ecosystem. And again, it's one of those things, if you haven't done so already, make sure you check out the security and information in and around that. So that way you're comfortable and understand what you're giving it access to, right? Because not everybody can give it access to all things, right? This goes back to that concept of making sure we understand what the ingredients are that we're cooking with, so that way we can protect others, right? So again, when you're cooking, there may be allergies and such, or dietary needs. And so we want to be careful on, again, how you cook and what you use. And so again, as we're looking at Copilot, being mindful of, one, it's great that the capabilities are there, but maybe we can't use all of them. So again, being able to look at that and understand what is appropriate for our organization. So, but being able to then, again, have it use the citations, right? Where did you get this information from, right? We talked about it going to the large language model. It then comes back as grounded. And as part of that grounding, it's going to then provide back a reference to where did you get this information from? Because I want to validate potentially, right? I want to see why you thought that this was the appropriate answer to it. And again, over time, we'll see it potentially get better, being able to really not just give you 4 bullet points, but maybe it'll give you more information, right? A summary that's kind of works out really well. So now we've seen what it looks like to get ready for a meeting, right? Catch me up, what's going on. But often what happens is we're in meetings already, and we want to make sure that we send that notification back to the team about what was accomplished during the meeting and what's ahead for us. So let's go ahead and look at Copilot in Teams meeting recap. And I think this one's very interesting for anybody that's doing meetings right now on Teams as a part of it. So if you've used Teams transcripts, that is that same concept idea, right? Taking the transcripts from the meeting, run it through the large language model, return back some of the actions as we're recapping this meeting and being able to go forward.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarized notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver.
Can you imagine what this is going to do and how impactful this can be to an organization? So one, again, there's a whole conversation around meetings and should you be in a meeting, and make sure that you're there if you're if you accept it. But it's interesting to see the summary, right? It's that ability to capture the summary of what's happening in the meeting, right? Similar to how you take a large block of text, a PDF, a Word document, whatever, and have the large language model, ChatGPT, summarize it, totally can do it. Now what we're going to do is summarize those meetings, right? So now these long meetings, now what does that note taking look like? It'll be very interesting to see how note taking evolves during these kind of meetings where you have this enabled. Now, the secret sauce really is that ability to ask it questions, right? It's not just, okay, here's your information, have fun with it. That's all I got. It's that ability to interact with it, right? So now what you're doing is that ability to interact with the transcript, right? Essentially, you're interacting, it feels like with the meeting, but you're interacting with the transcript from the meeting. And so being able to ask, what other customers do we consider as a part of this? Being able to get that quick recap and understanding of important points that you would have maybe asked during the meeting. Did those questions get asked, and what were they answered, and how were they answered? And that ability is it shows to see exactly the citations on some of the answers that it's giving, right? Here, what was the other part? What were the other solutions discussed in the meeting? Who made those solution recommendations? Was that something that maybe we should have considered more strongly as a part of it? So again, just one example of when it comes to Microsoft Teams chat, how powerful it can be and how much of a secret sauce it could be in what you're cooking up. The last thing I want to talk about is adoption. It's first key to understand what this is and preparing you and your staff for it. This is technology, and it's yes, it's very cool and innovative, and some of it's intuitive, but understanding how do we make sure our data is secure? How do we make sure our data is ready to be utilized in this way, in this manner, is going to be important. And so I would encourage you, links down in the bottom, adoption for the Microsoft 365 Copilot. Okay, there's so much more to go. We just covered M365. Are you ready to go further? Next, we're going to cover the Power Platform. Now, the Power Platform, there's so many different things and different ways that we can cover it. We're going to keep it high level. A lot of these things are the building blocks when you think of the business application space just above it. So when we come to the Power Platform, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the docs. There's some videos out there. There's definitely some hands-on. We're not going to go hands-on today. We're going to try to keep this a little bit high level as we go through it. But let's talk about how these areas can impact you and your clients as we go. So first, we're going to talk about Power Automate. Power Automate's that concept of being able to take actions automatically. So when I receive an email, do XYZ. When a task comes in, do XYZ. And it's been there. It's been pretty good. And the abilities and capabilities are there. It's this concept of a low code automation tool and workflow tool with 300 plus different connectors. You can create your own connectors. It's all kind of cool, different stuff. Now, one of the things that's interesting now is I no longer have to know the exact verbiage on some of this stuff. And so what Copilot's doing when they bring it here is part of the maker experience, right? I'm not prompting this Power Automate, this flow thing to be able to bring it back in and interact with it like a chat, like that's Power Virtual Agent, right? That's the chatbot concept. And we won't get into that today, but generative answers, check that out. It's in the Microsoft Learn link. What we're doing and what we're talking about is a start to build a flow, right? I know there's automation in your organization that needs to happen, right? You know what it is, and you can verbalize it. You can describe it, but the problem is, I don't know how to code. I know it's low code and stuff, but like, I don't know how to make a connection, right? I don't know what that looks like. And so what this does is it allows you to, in natural language, prompt what you're looking to accomplish. And what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and build that flow out for you. It's going to build all those steps as it goes. And so here it's prompting when somebody sends me an email mentioning me, send me a Teams message, right? So maybe when they at me in an email, I need to be notified, like pop it up on the side and let me notify more often, right? This allows you to close your Outlook, right? How many of us keep our Outlook and that's what we're in all day, right? That's not good best practice, right? But maybe if somebody sends me an email and ats me and says, hey, Seth, you need to do this, pop over a message to me and saying, hey, by the way, Seth, your boss just let you know that there's an action that needs to be taken. Go ahead and maybe open that Outlook inbox because you need to take action and maybe it needs to be timely manner. So here you're describing what you're trying to accomplish. And what it's going to do is it's going to do those three different things, right? It's going to each one of those. It's going to listen to your exchange. It then goes to your profiling graph, pulls that information, then goes posts a message, right? And all you did was describe, hey, when I get an email, somebody asks me, send me a message. How cool is that? That is so stinking cool. The other thing I've done and played around with this is the ability to update. Maybe you've created this and you know what? I forgot a step, right? Maybe I needed to let my boss know or something like that. What you could do is just in that text box right there is that ability to have it update, right? So I need it to do another step, right? So after it asks me, go ahead and create a task planner meeting as well, or task planner item for me as well after I approve it, or maybe you send an approval, right? Whatever that is, type it in that box and I'll bet it'll go ahead and create something for you. And it's crazy because it doesn't just add it to the end. You could add it to the middle, and it also knows to update additional steps later on. So this is very cool. It's very neat to see the capabilities that are coming to the automate, the Power Automate side and the flow, and that ability to just using natural language, create new code. The next one we're going to talk about is Power Apps. So the Power Apps is the concept of a canvas, right? So you have this idea of an app that you're trying to build. It's been a while and you're not exactly sure how to build an app. And you're like, you know what I need? I need a check-in app. I need something when I do this repeated task, it's in Excel and the user interface is good. I mean, everybody loves Excel, but the problem is I'm out on the line when I'm needing this information and I can't input it in my phone. Maybe there's offline capabilities or something like that. How do we build something that has a great interface for us to use that is not clunky and being able to engage with it quickly? So that's where we get into this concept of Power Apps. And so with Power Apps, what we're going to do is describe it, right? So we're just going to describe, a hotel housekeeping in this case, right? Is what they're looking to create. And so here again, what it's going to do is allow you to describe it. Again, version 1 is always light. It's the first time making the recipe. You're not getting too creative with it. And so Microsoft hasn't done that with their Copilot, but subsequent version, you can imagine how you can be very more prescriptive in adding different flavors and different spices into it as you're building it out. And so here in the first one, it's just a very simple, hotel housekeeping item. So what's the room and the number and the name, right? So who's assigned to it? But what you can do is you can iterate through it right now using Copilot. And I've already seen this evolve, and this is still in preview. This is still not generally available yet. So again, you can turn it on. It's a preview feature as a part of it. So maybe I want the start end times, right? So go ahead and add in additional columns. And so that ability to iterate through an app, and again, what it's doing is it's taking the natural language as you're going through, it's determining what would a data structure look like, right? Again, if you've been around Excel, if you've been around Access, a database, a relational database, there's hints of a lot of that here. And so no longer do you just come with your data to create it, but you can also come with your natural language and create it as well. So very excited to see where Power Automate goes as well. There's going to be Power BI. If you haven't seen that, we'll drop a link down in the description as well for you to check out Power BI. There's a lot of interesting things about how do I analyze my data that's being stored in Fabric as well. So we'll get into that today. The next one we're going to talk about is security. So let's talk about security. This one's always interesting as we reimagine what security can be. Here again, we're going to play a quick video that just talks about the day in the life of somebody that works in security and cybersecurity. This one's interesting because, again, if you have that capability of querying data and data sources, being able to quickly do that based on my job and my role, and it'll be interesting to see where this goes from here. So let's go ahead and watch this video.
If you've ever worked in a security operations center, you know it can feel like mayhem. More open browser tabs than you can count, alerts and incidents popping up all the time. Security Copilot is different. It helps you simplify and focus. At the center is the prompt bar. Prompts allow you to ask a natural language question like, what are all the incidents in my enterprise? You can ask for a summary of a vulnerability, or you can feed in files, URLs, or code snippets and ask for information about them. You can also ask for information about incidents or alerts from your other security tools. What you input here stays within your control. Your data is your data. Your prompts and the responses they generate are all saved. Core to Security Copilot is an immutable audit trail so that an organization can always go back into the investigation to understand exactly what data went in and what came out. This is because transparency has been designed in from the very start.
So as you can see there, it'll be interesting to see how Copilot, again, that concept of natural language, that prompting capability against your data, against these files, against this information, is being able to be summarized and being able to use not just in the business application space or in the M365, the modern workspace with your Office products, not just in that space, but also in strategic, very specific areas as we get into that. So the next one we're going to look at is Customer Insights. Customer Insights takes the concept of a buyer's journey. And so here, if somebody's abandoned a cart, what does it look like to have a follow-up? So what it's going to do is generate some concepts of or actions and say, hey, you know what you should do? You should wait 3 days and reach out to them. That's what you should do. And so here, what it's gone ahead and done is it's gone ahead and created a marketing campaign and created essentially, okay, we should send them an email. We should send them XYZ at a certain time. And so what it's doing is helping that individual that may or may not have been familiar with what do you do with an abandoned cart when it comes to online shopping. How do you re-engage somebody appropriately? Again, Copilot is coming in as that sous chef that says, hey, this is how people have approached it. This is how you should approach this concept. And you know what? I'll go ahead and put in the ingredients for you. No sweat. So it'll be interesting to see how customer journey, how we see these customer insights, how we see these role-specific applications starting to come to life with Copilot. And this is just what's fresh out of the kitchen. The next thing we're going to talk about is sales. We've talked about sales a little bit when it came to the Teams concept of it, but now what we're going to talk about is Sales Copilot. So Sales Copilot is embedded either in your D365 or Salesforce. It has the ability to connect to that as well. It's formerly known as Viva Sales. There's a lot of information from others in the community in and around that. And so here it's having a whole discussion around what is the upcoming meetings? What meetings do I have? How do I prepare for it? What are the action items for my last meeting? And being able to prepare for this meeting that I have that's very critical as we go forward. The next one, again, more information. This is kind of a screenshot that's a still so that we were able to see it. But being able to see, again, what's the demo discussion? What prepare for Copilot? You see that right there in the middle. And I think that'll be very interesting to see those things come to life where it says, okay, this is the meeting you have. We know the product you're going to talk about. Here's some sales literature. Here's some other things from Graft or emails as you get ready for this meeting that's coming up. So a lot of good information being able to be presented as a sales person to enable conversations at a deeper level. The last one we'll look at is Sales Copilot and Outlook. So Sales Copilot, again, it has that ability to go not just to your graph data, right? So when we think of Outlook and Copilot for Outlook, that's helping you craft emails based on information that's directly there. But Sales Copilot goes a step further and reaches into your database of your sales, right? Whether it's salesforce.com or whether it's Dynamics 365 sales, it's being able to go into those systems, being able to query that information, ground it, take it to the large language model, bring it back, and being able to give you very in context information about what is the next step. How do we make sure that we're progressing this further when it comes to the next step on this pursuit, right? So again, enabling your salespeople to have relevant information from across the organization based on graph data, based on your CRM data, all brought to you for quickly engaging. How are you doing? You staying with me? There's so much when it comes to Copilot, as you can see. Again, when we talked about it, there's all of these different apps. And what we've done is we've gone through the M365, the Microsoft Security, we've gone through the Business Apps one, we've gone through the Power Automate. We won't get into the Azure one or the Bing Chat one. The last couple ones we're going to do is we're going to talk about the GitHub Copilot. We're going to then talk about the Copilot Stack, and we're going to finish off on the granddaddy of them all, the Microsoft Copilot. So next we're going to talk about Copilot X. Copilot X has so many amazing features. Just like a sous chef that we talked about earlier is able to help you and guide you through some of the different recipes that you're building out and being able to help you curate all these different components. When it comes to Copilot X and that ability to have it in GitHub, this is like the sous chef going to the farmer's market with you, helping you select out how you should be writing code and how you should be engaging with it. And so I'm very excited for our pro developers. They've had this for over a year now, this Copilot X, that ability to generate code based on the information. So let's go ahead and look at it in Visual Studio. So here within Visual Studio, this was a piece of code that maybe I was given that I'm not quite sure I understand. Again, this is very simplistic, but being able to use use Copilot to say, explain So here it's gone ahead and described, this is JavaScript name, calculate numbers. That's the function name. Takes two parameters and it returns the sum of it. Okay. You know, it would be nice if somebody would actually comment this code. So in this case, I'm going to do it fairly simplistic. So I went ahead and added to comment the code. There's different ways to, again, how do you insert it and approach it? So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and insert it at the cursor, which overwrites what was already there. And so here it's gone ahead and made comments for me as a part of it. And so I can go ahead and save and push that out. So that's interesting. Again, if you imagine a lot more code being captured and put in place, that would certainly be something that would be helpful. The other thing that I would do, and we have the ability to do, is maybe code from scratch. So here what we're going to do is an HTML file. This doesn't have any data in it currently. So let's go ahead and start from scratch and have it, we'll start over and say, so let's go ahead and ask it to create a full HTML page, including style and navigation bar. So this is going to take it a little time to think. And there it has gone ahead and created one that we can go ahead and insert there. Again, I've prompted to include styles. So here's my styling and my navigation bar styling as well. And there's the information. Again, using preview, we can go ahead and show the preview what that looks like. And so there's a very simplistic use of Copilot X. Now there's so many more capabilities. We're only scratching the surface, but you can imagine how somebody that may be new to coding or is learning to code, it's no longer going to ChatGPT. It's no longer going to some of these other ones. You could do some of this in concert here. And what it's doing is it's not just grounding your data in graph like we talked about. It's actually grounding the information back in the vendor's documentation, right? What is it with Python, with these other languages? Go back to the vendor's documentation that's public, it's available. Bring that information in, help use that as grounding information. And then being able to, as you're learning and being able to ask questions, you're now being able to engage with this as well. You're almost done cooking. We have 2 more Copilots that we're going to review, and let's jump in. The first one we're going to review is that ability to create a plugin. Plugins have been known throughout different applications. And that idea of being able to call a plugin in order to perform an action is going to be amazing and critical as we get into this Copilot era and this era of AI and large language models. So what we're going to do is first thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight this concept of using Copilot, again, sort of the user interface that we talked about, a plugin in the rest of the digital world, right? That ability to create our own Copilot kind of capabilities using the same framework that Microsoft used to build out their own. So first things first, let's talk about the structure of the plugin. So here we have the Copilot Stack, and what we're going to do is that ability to see, we have the apps on top, right? So the plugin extensibility, the Copilots, the AI orchestration, the foundational model, and the AI infrastructure, right? That's all on Azure, right? And so that ability to create based on this stack ways for your clients, your employees, your constituents to be able to engage with your models, either that you've created or that you're going to leverage from others. That ability to orchestrate your own, to be able to engage with it, this is going to become critical. So let's go ahead and see an example of that with Instacart. So just like that, it's incredible what you saw. And again, I know it's sped up and stuff for demos, but that ability to look for recipes, right? I'm looking for ingredients. I'm thinking about making something tonight, right? I don't know how many times I've had that conversation with my wife, but that ability to then say, you know what I need to do is I need to go ahead and what are the ingredients for that? Okay, that's great. Those are the ingredients. And again, this is using Chat GPT. This is using Bing Chat for all this stuff. That ability to then say, you know what, I have most of these items. I already have raspberries and sugar. But you know what, can you go ahead and add the rest to a shopping cart for me? And this is Instacart. So this is Instacart's plugin being able to be called from Bing Chat to then go make and embed, being able to take the recipe from above, right? In context, right? It understands what the rest of the conversation was, take those ingredients and then add it directly into your cart. So now you have a one-click checkout, right? You're no longer going around Instacart trying to select the different items. Instacart's made that super easy for you. So what other things could you build in and on this tool that would make it easier for your team members, for your employees, for your constituents, for your users, for your customers? What does that look like? Because that is where this is headed. How can you build a plugin that enables your team to do more? So now what we need to talk about is that next step. So what does this mean when we're bringing this all together? So the last video we're going to watch, the one that blew my mind, it was incredible. It was one of those things where I saw it and I was like, things are changed. Things with business applications, with applications in general, the way people interact with computers is about to change. And the next video that we're going to watch is from Microsoft Build 2023. And what it talks about is Windows. So Windows, again, how many of us are running Windows? Not everybody. I know there's a lot of Mac users out there. I have a Mac, but that ability to make our devices smarter and be able to engage, just like we saw with the plugin with Instacart, how can we engage at the next deeper level when it comes to Windows and our devices, using natural language for things that I can articulate a little bit verbally, but maybe I can't articulate it or know where to click. So let's go ahead and watch that video next. Okay. If you did not get excited about that, I don't know what to do for you. The ability for you to engage, when it says all of Microsoft, I'm very curious if it means all of Microsoft, right? The M365 apps, the Teams app. Could you ask that question directly in that Windows? Help me prepare for this upcoming meeting. What does that mean? What does that look like? And you saw it integrate with Spotify. You saw it take action in Adobe Express. That ability to change how we interact with our controls and our content and our apps, that these apps that have such a high learning curve. Do we see apps now with all of that capability and power? Do we see that being available and accessible to more people because of it? And again, when you think about the extensibility of the AI capabilities as well, in Instacart, right? Could maybe Instacart pops up there, right? You're just on your Windows device and you're right there in the home screen. You're not on Bing Chat. You just ask it, hey, what are the ingredients? I don't know what that looks like. We'll see what the future beholds. And so hopefully you're excited a little bit. Hopefully this breaks down some of the understanding as we look at these applications, as we look and hear about the term Microsoft Copilot. What does that mean? Where does this live? How does this get enabled and such? Those will all be questions. And as you're going through this, it's important to know that each one of these products is on its own life cycle release, right? So as we've seen, there's some things already out in Power Automate. It's already in our environment. You're already seeing things come out with Bing Chat. Right now it's enterprise, Bing Chat for enterprise, right? But we're still seeing Microsoft 365 being slowly rolled out, and we haven't seen it in the wild yet. What's interesting, again, knowing that there's this Microsoft Copilot branding out there that's available for most, and we're going to see it being released. And again, there's going to be costs associated with it for some of them, as we'll see. So it's interesting. The Power Platform one right now, it's the maker, the creative side of it is being released for free. That's just part of how you are going to make an app in the future. Whereas the M365, they're currently going to charge $30 for it per user per month. And so it's interesting to understand, one, the licensing, two, how people are going to engage with it. And it's going to be critical for organizations to understand, what is that value that I'm trying to achieve with this? Because I anticipate there really is value there, but what is that? And how am I going to make sure that my people and my teams and my data is everything ready and secure for it? Hopefully you're excited. I'm excited for what's happening at Microsoft, where they're headed with their AI tools. I'm excited for the rest of the AI community when it comes to text to image and image descriptions as well. There's so much and so many things that are going to be done in the next few years around these large language models that have now come into everyday conversation. What does this look like? How do we as companies really make a good step forward? So would encourage you to reach out if you have any questions, put comments down below, reach out to me on social media as well, and look forward to connecting with you next time on the Bacon Bites.